Network.
Anybody ever heard of Surly Brewing Company?
No.
Has anybody met anybody from Surly Brewing Company? A bunch of assholes over there. Oh, I got Todd Haug from Surly Brewing Company hanging out with us today. All the way from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Right. Where it's 20 below today.
Yeah, and raining.
Todd brought his only pair of shorts to California. He's been wearing them for 4 days.
Yes. Stand up on their own.
Yeah. What beer did you bring for us, Todd?
We brought a couple different beers that, knowing what I assumed everybody else would bring, would be high gravity, highly hop beers. In true Surly fashion, we brought some of the lowest gravity beers we have right now. So we brought an Americanized version of a British ordinary bitter called Bitter Brewer, and a lager we make each spring called Schadenfreude. It's oak-aged dark lager. So I think they're going to be sharing both of those out here. So the dark one is obviously Schadenfreude, and the more orange one is the Bitter Brewer.
Okay. And speaking of sharing, I would like to thank the Bitterwater Betties for helping to pour beer.
Woo!
They're the good-looking ones. I would also like to thank the dudes in the blue shirts for helping to pour beer. And they're working really hard, so they do deserve a round of applause. They're just not very good-looking, and that's all right. Are you guys distributed on the West Coast at all, Todd, or is this the only chance we get to have your beer?
It is. This is the first festival we've ever been involved in California. We only sell our beer in Minnesota. Okay. There's no plans to change that in the next 2 years. Nope, we're growing as much as we can. We're building a new brewery next year. We'll get our capacity up to about 50,000 barrels, and then from there up to 100 plus. Wow. And at that point, who knows? Sure. But right now, we're pretty happy that the beer is 6 hours from the brewery. Honestly, it's I sleep well at night knowing that it's not sitting in Florida hot.
Right.
So.
It's Minnesota hot.
Yep, exactly.
Which is not hot at all.
No.
You're selling a lot of beer locally. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we did 20,000 barrels last year. We should do close to 20, almost 30 this year, and next year with the new facility, somewhat over 40, hopefully, depending on timing. So,
how long has Surly been open?
About 7 years. We sold our first keg a little over 7 years ago. Me and Omar got together over many beers at a craft brewers conference in San Diego. We grew up together, went to junior high and elementary school, and then never saw each other again until about 9 years ago. He showed up on a forum, Brewers Association forum, and I remembered him. He did not remember me. And CBC San Diego, I hooked up with him, and we started talking about his plans, his ideas. I was at a brew pub at the time and was really interested in why he thought it would work, because Minnesota is not known, 10 years ago was not known for craft beer. Right. That's changed now. So in the last 7 years, we've seen over 20 new breweries open. Okay. So it's really exploding, and we're proud to be part of it. Summit's our big brewery in town.
Good beer, too.
Yeah, they
sell
over 100,000 barrels a year. I worked there when I was 21. They're great guys, and it's really exciting to see new small breweries being creative and really kind of the culture's there now where it wasn't before. So
you were a brewer already. What was Omar doing with his life?
Omar worked with his parents. The current facility and a lot of our beer names come from their old business, which is an abrasives factory. Okay. So they made grinding wheels for foundries, grinding wheels for metal finishing, welders, stuff like that. And Omar grew up in that plant for about 20-some years, and then he took it over when his dad had some health issues. And as he says, basically drove it into the ground, almost failed his parents' business, and then he started homebrewing and decided, hey, why, with all this extra space, because I've kind of killed my parents' business, I could put a brewery in here. So that was the idea, and Omar's one of those guys that really likes to research and talk to as many people with experience as he can about his ideas. Yeah. And one of those people was me, and I just happened to be on a track that involved welding and soldering and general fabrication and everything to put a brewery together, and it just kind of the timing worked. So he brought me on board to basically assemble the brewery, put everything together, and then also all the recipes and everything. So.
We recently interviewed an author. He has a new book out called "The Audacity of Hops." It's very clever name. But he was talking to me about brewing as its manufacturing. And I know breweries aren't really factories,
right,
but it is manufacturing. I hadn't thought about it in that light. You know, we spent a lot of time talking about how manufacturing has left the United States.
Right.
But in craft beer, it's really growing all the time. And I guess I just wonder if Omar's background in manufacturing has helped Surly.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, it is. It's obviously Omar's. His role is very different than mine, where he entrusts me to make sure that the manufacturing we do, brewing beer, happens. But he understands that in any manufacturing, there's bottlenecks. There's a lot of logistics involved. It's very similar.
Yeah.
The big difference with beer is obviously shelf life and making sure things are fresh, raw materials, beer, obviously. So that's the big thing. An abrasive disc can sit on the shelf for months, years, and not affect it. So that's the big thing. That's been the thing that's kind of he's had to learn for that. But yeah, absolutely, it's definitely helped. So.
And you guys can beer as well, right?
We do. We started canning right out of the gate. We draft only for about 6 months, and then bought a cask inline 5-head canning line. We recently upgraded to a Comac high speed line, or higher speed line, I should say, for us. So that's been great. So yeah, we're the first brewery in Minnesota to can. We believe in cans as far as we use a lot of hops. So keep UV light out. If it's operated right, keep oxygen levels low. And Minnesota was ripe for having cans. There's no craft beer in cans 7 years ago, so we were the only one. So nice. No competition helps too.
Sure.
So.
If anybody has questions, we got a microphone up here. If you want to talk to Todd, feel free. That's what we're here for. How do you get a lot of hops in a session beer? If I can get beer nerd on you for a second and not make it all bitter.
Well, yeah, it's a good question. It's still a balance issue, and variety too. And Bitter Brewer is a U.S. variety called Glacier, which if you're a home brewer, it's like one of the softest, most gentle hops out there. Like, it's hard to overuse it. Okay. So that helps. It's borderline grassy, kind of that traditional, almost UK kind of bitter hop, or not that American citrus classic pale ale character at all. So that hop variety helps, but also the malt composition, it doesn't matter really what the gravity is. If the malt is just thin and watery, the hops are going to come screaming through. So in my opinion, any hoppy beer that you love, the reason you love it is because the malt is right, not just that it has a ton of hops.
Okay.
So we use a lot of Simpson's malt from the UK. So even though the beer is 3.2%, there's still a huge pale ale flavor character that, unless you're told it's that low alcohol, you probably won't realize it. A lot of the body. We also use oats in that beer, kind of gives some viscosity and body to the beer. So it's not a secret. It's unfortunately not trendy right now to make session beers.
It's becoming trendy again, I think.
I've been saying that for 5 years, that
right.
It's going to come around, because we all need to drink more beer, but you can't drink 9% beers all day.
Yeah.
So.
One of our local, I'm from the Bay Area. One of our local breweries, Drake's, which is I love their beer. Yeah. They just had a session fest. It's the first session beer fest
awesome.
I've ever heard of, and I think they had several breweries there bringing session
that's
beers.
Awesome to hear.
Crystal malt too, that you're putting in there to help balance.
Yeah, some low color, English crystal malt.
Okay.
But that's pretty much it.
What about, can you heavily, a lot of the good session beers I'm trying now have a nice hop flavor, not a bitterness, but a hop flavor. Can you heavily dry hop a session beer?
Absolutely, yeah, and this one is. Again, it's all Glacier, so it's perceived as fairly soft. It's not going to be really bright, not West Coast at all, if you will.
Right.
But yeah, you can. The one of the issues with over dry hopping and any beer is you get too much material, solids, vegetable matter in the beer. You're going to get some flavors that aren't desirable. And specific with this hop, you definitely get more hay than you do get orange.
Okay.
So we messed around with it for a while. In fact, Glacier was in the first two brews of what is now known as Abrasive Ale, or double IPA.
Okay.
And when we went to can that beer and we stuck to the recipe, and I tried it out of the fermenter, and I'm like, Glacier's got to get pulled out of there. It just smelled like a haystack because we wanted up the hop rate for a double IPA, but it was all grass. It was not citrus. Wasn't anything you'd think should be there for a American double IPA. So in this beer, it works great. It's gentle. It's not overpowering, but at the same time, it's got aromatics. So yeah, definitely. I mean, mash hopping in this beer. Obviously, bittering hop, whirlpool hops, and dry hops. So very similar to an IPA. Just everything's brought down and balanced differently. So.
I'm glad you brought up Glacier because it's not something that brewers mention often. It's not hip like Citra or whatever.
Right. Yeah, no, it's not. I know. I think Dogfish Head did 100% Glacier beer a couple years ago, an IPA or something, and I think they did it once, and there's probably a reason for that. We just really like it. It's got it's unique, but it's also we don't use any common varieties across our beers. Just on point because we use finishing hops, a high level of finishing hops in all of our beers, even our brown ale. We just don't want a common house flavor, if you will, from a finishing hop. So Glacier works great in that beer. And Bender, it's Willamette. And Furious, it's a blend of 5 different American varieties. And in Cynic, it's Styrian Goldings from Sylvania. So we believe hops are a great signature flavor profile, aroma profile, if you will. So.
Sure. All right, we got questions. Good.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, between you and Omar, who's the best at disc golf?
Do you hear the question? Yeah, Omar's a big ultimate Frisbee guy, and so he'd probably beat me at disc golf, yeah, for sure.
Do you guys play tackle disc golf?
I would, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be the metal version. That's what I do, yeah.
Yeah. Put on a little metal and tackle.
Exactly.
Well, I live in Portland, and I'd like to see you get better distribution.
You live in Portland?
Uh-huh.
Yes. Well, there's great beer there. Why do you need our beer?
I need your beer. Come on.
She loves yours.
Yeah, you could go see her friend Van at Gigantic Brewing. You could
Okay.
go see, there's
right.
tons of breweries.
Aren't there
All right.
more breweries in Portland per
Than people?
capita
Than
than
people?
anybody in
Just
the...
need
Yeah.
more. We need
But
more
she
diversity.
still wants
Yeah,
yours,
come
Todd.
on.
You can't say no to that.
I don't know. Someday. Honestly, that's one market I've never
Well,
thought
you
we'd
say
ever be
2
in.
years. Do you have a 3-year plan?
Yeah. Yeah, right now, that's one market I've never considered needed
Oh,
beer from
start
Minnesota.
Considering we need you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Noted.
Here's how that board meeting goes.
Yeah.
Hey, where can we send beer that it's impossible to put on the shelf?
Yeah.
Portland.
Yeah. We need an oversaturated market. Yeah.
No, sorry. After you decided to start brewing on a commercial scale, what was the most unexpected challenge you faced?
Well, specific to Surly, honestly, it's been kind of balancing growth, like production, brewing more, packaging more, and then also making sure it's timed with sales. Since we've recently stopped self-distributing, we're in this weird point of change with sending all of our beer off-site. For 7 years, we've controlled it. It's gone to our customers that we know personally, which is great, but it's also hard to grow when you do that. It's hard to just brew more, and it doesn't just leave the brewery on its own. You actually have to, there's relationships involved and schedules, and not everybody has an open tap line or a shelf space in a liquor store. So as unromantic as it is, it's not really a brewing thing. It's more on the other side for me, because we can hire people, we can add equipment in the brewery that makes it easier to make more beer, but it's really selling it, making sure it ends up in the right account. You don't want a fire sale. You don't want to just send it to, I don't know, there's no state that's not in a craft beer now, so I can't say Florida anymore, or Texas. It used to be like, just send it to Texas. But now, we don't want to do that. We want our beer to be as good as it can be. So that's really, it's a timing and growth issue, yeah.
Thank you.
It's a good question. Are you opening a brewery, kid? Not yet, but you're looking for it.
Okay, so my question is
God.
mash hop versus first wort hop.
Homebrewer nerd
What's the
and my
main
friend,
difference?
so I can call him a nerd because we're
Good.
friends.
It's a good question.
Well,
Can you, if anybody doesn't know, a mash hop, you have a mashing process, you put the hops in the mash. First wort hops means that as you're running off the mash into the kettle, you put hops in there. Do I have that right, Todd?
Yes.
Okay, good. What's the difference?
You're a nerd too. I don't think there's a difference. I think honestly the reason we changed, we used to do first wort hopping, is we were having issues with yields in the whirlpool. So we kind of looked at the recipe, and it's like the simple thing to do is to reduce the total hop solids load in the whirlpool so you can get more wort out.
Okay.
So if you put them in the mash, they stay in the mash. They don't get into the kettle. So that was the main reason. And it smells really good. Honestly, mashing in with hops, it's like the best smell in the world. So
Are they pellet hops when you do that?
we use
too?
all pellet, yeah.
Same ratio, like.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yep.
if it was like a X edition of first wort hop, X edition of mash hop.
Pretty much now everything when we move from first wort to mash, same amounts. The other thing too is most of the hop material stays in the mash, so your IBUs are probably less. So we had to kind of adjust for that too. But as far as you're trying it at home, it will be different, but I think it's a very similar effect in the end. So.
Thank you. I did want to ask about that too. Are you calculating for bitterness when you put hops in the mash?
No, we don't
You don't.
calculate for much.
You're not calculating anything.
No.
The beer's done. Here you
No,
go.
it's honestly we rely on how the beer tastes, and we do lab work, but that's not what drives it. It's if it tastes right and smells good, and we can do that consistently. That's way more important than any lab thing that could.
Okay,
come back,
but
so.
even with that, I think what I wonder too for all of my homebrew nerd friends is, are you getting some IBUs out of mash hopping?
Probably less than first wort, just because the solids get entrained in the mash,
All right.
so they don't get boiled as a result. So you less IBUs.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yep.
Next question. This is on dry hopping on a homebrew level. What are the differences, or do you have a preference between doing it in a fermenter or doing it in a keg?
Good question. It's hard to do at home, but I'm a big, firm believer in dry hopping on a regular beer. On a beer you're not going to age for months, like on an IPA or something you want ready in a 4-week window. Dry hopping as soon as you can to the terminal point of attenuation, end of fermentation. Get the hops in there while the yeast is still active. If there is any oxidation, you could potentially scrub that out. That's not easy to do home brewing, I understand, but we literally physically pour the hops right on the top of the fermenters. It's like once it's reached terminal gravity for about 36, 48 hours. If you do it too early, it'll foam all over. Don't do that. But I think the interaction you get with the hops, the beer is warm, which helps. But also you get some good mixing because there's still some CO2 in solution. It's kind of a mess to get out of the fermenter, but it's do that on about day 6 or 7, and then we'll dry hop no longer than 7 days. So it's usually 1 to 7 days on dry hops, and then centrifuge off the dry hops. So.
You have a centrifuge at home, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the side of the homebrew argument that says when you do it in the fermenter and every time you walk in your fermentation you smell this fabulous aroma, it's your dry hop leaving, whereas you're able to contain it if done in a keg.
Right.
We keg and we have the availability of a walk-in freezer. And so how we do it is after fermentation, then we rack over to the keg. We use whole leaf in a bag, and as with the IPAIs and the pales, the ones you're going to go through quickly, we leave it in there until we're done serving.
Yeah.
And is there any issue with that? I mean, should we?
The only issue
Are we
with
fucking up somewhere along the line?
No, the only issue you might perceive is just over contact time. You'll get vegetal flavors versus nice hop aroma. So you get the actual green chlorophyll kind of plant material flavors versus the desired dry hop oils. That's the only thing. But if you're drinking it, within a week, that's not an issue. But generally, over 14 days, the contact time should be minimized to max of 14 days, in my opinion.
Perfect.
So
Thank you so
you're
much.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? One more? Let's do it.
Uh-oh.
Hey, can you talk a little bit about the origins of your name and your logo?
Yep.
I'd like to know.
Oh, yeah.
And the
We
artwork
didn't talk about it. We need to.
That was the question.
Yeah.
Gotcha. The question was, where did Surly, the name and the logo, come from? Omar and his wife, the story goes, was that they got Surly, which the amazing thing to me is, hopefully I'm not going to offend anybody here, but there's people out there that don't realize that Surly is actually a word.
Right.
It's in the dictionary. Trust me.
It's a real word.
My electrician, like 4 weeks ago, said, "So, what's the story behind the name?" I'm like, "You mean Surly?" He's like, "Yeah." Well, it's a word. Is that right? He says.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's a word.
Never heard of
it.
it.
Means mad or angry. So Omar and Becca, his wife, traveled out here, Pacific Northwest, to look at all the great beer that we didn't have in Minnesota 9 years ago, and came back to Minnesota and went to their local, and it's like Leinenkugel's, 2 Millers, 2 Budweisers, Summit, of course, but that was it. And they got mad, or they got surly, at the inability to find good beer local to our market.
That dude's surly now.
And from there, Becca's brother's wife's brother-in-law or something like that out in the Boston area had a branding or marketing company, and they started working on the idea for the logo. And the whole yin yang symbol, they wanted that. They liked the surly name, and came up with the happy guy with the full beer and the sad guy with the empty beer. And that that's the turning point for me. When Omar walked in, he'd come and brew with me at my old job, and he'd watch me brew. Actually, he didn't brew with me, but he came in showed me that logo. It was the first moment I realized that there's A, potential for his idea and his company, and that B, I had to be a part of it. So it was the logo is honestly what hooked me in, because before that I thought he was nuts and didn't know what he was doing. So it's honestly.
If somebody else puts out a can with a normal face on it, will you be suing for a trademark lawsuit?
I don't. That's not really.
What if
our
it's
style,
upside down?
It's not really our style, but
Good.
our lawyer might disagree with us.
Yeah.
So.
Todd Haug from Surly Brewing, everybody. Woo. Thanks for hanging out with us, Todd.
Cheers.
We're going to take a short break so I can have some more beer.
Yeah.
And when we come back, we got more interviews for you. Thanks for hanging out with us. Now let's do that. Give me this microphone back. I want to know real quick how you know Matt. In fact, I want to know how you got invited to this festival, because we hear, it's invite only.
That's what I heard. So
Yeah.
I've known Matt for years. If everybody doesn't know, he's from Minnesota. So him and Dick Cantwell that run Elysian, he's also from Minnesota. Okay. There's a lot of great brewers out there that spent some of their youth in Minnesota. So that's come up over the years. Matt worked at Goose Island. Yep. So a lot of his coworkers that have gone to other breweries that are still in Chicago are my friends and his friends. So I've known Matt for years. But more recently, we were in Copenhagen together at a beer fest, and I finally were just like, hey, what's up with your fest? He's like, I don't know. Why aren't you coming? I was like, well, it's an invitational. That requires an invite, right? He's like, yeah, I've sent you guys emails last year and this year. Oh. And I was just, well, I don't know who got the emails. They either went to Omar and he buried it, or I don't know. So like, well, yeah, we'll be there. So at the last minute, that's where we're the last edition, is that I never thought I was invited. So for 2 years, I've been mad at Matt.
I asked him when he was up here, I said, have you lost any friends? He's like, no.
No, I can't. I mean, and then when Matt asks you to do something, you have to do it. Right. So, no, I would never sever the relationship with him over it. But, yeah.
But here you are in Copenhagen, all butthurt that you never got the invitation.
Butthurt,
like,
correct. Yeah, absolutely.
And you're like, bro.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yep, exactly.
I don't know,
exactly
check Omar's spam box.
Yep. So we're here. We'll be here for every year from here, as long as we're invited.
You might get uninvited.
Exactly.
So you're friends again.
Yes.
Todd Haug, everybody.
Thank you.
The Brewing Network.